Welcome to our Bestof Redditor, where life writes better plot twists than fiction. Today's story, it's a wild one. Picture this: a woman starts a new job, gets along great with her boss, and one unexpected office party later, she's pregnant. But that's not even the crazy part. She doesn't tell anyone, not HR, not her friends at work, not even the father at first. Why? Because the father is her boss. Now she's juggling deadlines, nausea, and a secret that could blow up both their careers. What follows is a rollercoaster of awkward conversations, unexpected kindness, a hostile work environment, and the slow burn of something more than just co-parenting. If you think office drama is boring, this story will change your mind. Let's dive into Oops, My Boss Accidentally Got Me Preggers, a saga full of secrets, spreadsheets, and surprise plot twists. Last year, I 28F landed what I thought was my dream job. After months of interviews, rejections, and freelancing to pay rent, I was finally hired at a mid-sized marketing firm known for its cool culture and generous PTO. The first day, I walked into the office practically glowing new laptop, my name on the desk, and free snacks in the kitchen. That's also when I met my boss, Matt 35msharpdresser.com voice. He looked like the kind of guy who had never missed a deadline in his life. He wasn't cold exactly, but distant in that manager who values boundaries way. Very by the book. I liked that about him. We didn't talk much outside of meetings. He always thanked me for my work, gave polite feedback, and moved on. I admired his discipline and focus. He had a dry sense of humor that peeked out every now and then during team calls, but never too much. Despite the boundaries, there was a kind of unspoken ease between us. Nothing romantic, just mutual respect. Occasionally, our eyes would meet, across the conference room during a joke or when someone said something ridiculous, and we'd both suppress a smile. I wasn't looking for anything more. I was too busy trying to prove myself in this new role, building a reputation, and climbing out of financial stress. But looking back, maybe that tension had always been there, hiding under the surface waiting. It happened at the annual company retreat. 3 days in the mountains at some overpriced rustic lodge, team bonding exercises, breakout sessions, and way too much small talk. By day 2, everyone was exhausted and over-caffeinated that night. After dinner, a group of us ended up gathered in the lounge, sipping wine and playing some card game I'd never heard of. Matt joined a little later, still in his button-up shirt, sleeves rolled up just enough to suggest he was trying to relax. The conversation turned silly. Someone pulled out a bottle of whiskey, and the more professional walls around people started to dissolve, mine included. I don't remember the exact moment things shifted. Maybe it was when we stepped outside for air and ended up walking along the edge of the property, away from the noise. We talked about life, not work. He told me about his dog, his dad's health scare, how he never really took vacations. I opened up about my burnout and fear of starting over. The connection felt real, intimate, and when we stopped walking and he looked at me like he wasn't sure if he should say goodbye or something else, I made the first move. It wasn't wild or reckless. It was quiet, thoughtful. We were both completely headed. We both said yes with our eyes before we ever touched. The next morning, everything was back to normal, painfully normal. We both acted like nothing had happened. Not cold, but calculated. There were no flirty glances, no conversations about it, no texts afterward, just silence. Back at the office, it was like that night had been erased, but it hadn't been. Not for me. Something had shifted. I just didn't know how much yet. It started with fatigue. At first, I chalked it up to work stress or bad sleep. Then I realized I hadn't gotten my period, not even spotting. Still, I told myself it was late. I bought a test just to calm my nerves. It was positive. So were the next two. I sat on my bathroom floor staring at the lines, feeling like the floor had fallen out from under me. This couldn't be happening. It was one night, one quiet, intimate night that I wasn't even sure mattered to him. I didn't tell anyone, not my best friend, not my sister. I went to the clinic alone to confirm what I already knew. I was 6 weeks along. I kept going to work, avoiding him like it was a skill I'd trained for. I couldn't even look at him in meetings without my pulse speeding up. Every time his voice dropped into that calm, professional tone, I felt sick with anxiety. I ran through every scenario. Would he think I did it on purpose? Would he question if it was his? Would it ruin his career or mine? For a while, I convinced myself I didn't have to tell him, but that wasn't true. He had a right to know. This wasn't just my story anymore. One Friday after work, I asked if we could talk. He looked surprised, but said sure. I told him I was pregnant. He didn't react at first, just blinked. I braced myself for yelling or disbelief. But all he said was, "Okay, do you need anything right now?" And somehow, that was even more disorienting than any meltdown I had imagined. I asked Matt if we could talk privately after work, and he agreed without hesitation. We sat in his office, away from the buzz of the team and the clatter of keyboards. My heart was racing as I finally told him the truth. I was pregnant. He was stunned. There was no doubt, but his face stayed calm. No anger, no accusations. Just silence as he processed what I'd said. I expected questions, demands for details, or even blame, but there was none of that. Instead, he looked at me quietly and said, "I'm going to need some time to think about this." His calmness both comforted and confused me. How could someone be so composed after hearing something that would rock most people? He didn't ask if the baby was his, didn't demand a paternity test, didn't blame me for the situation. He just listened, really listened. When I left that office, I felt a confusing mix of relief and uncertainty. I had expected a storm but got a quiet calm instead, one that left me wondering if he was holding back more than just words. Over the next few weeks, Matt's behavior shifted in subtle ways. It wasn't overt, but noticeable if you paid attention. He began asking about my doctor's appointments during meetings, offering to adjust deadlines if I needed time off. He'd check in quietly, saying things like, "Let me know if you need anything," or "Are you feeling okay today?" At first, I wasn't sure what to make of his kindness. Was it genuine concern, or just professional courtesy? Sometimes, when our eyes met across the room, I caught a softness there that hadn't been before, a hint of something deeper, maybe even care. I found myself wondering if he was processing his own feelings, or if this was just him being the boss doing his job well. Readers might suspect that beneath the surface, Matt was becoming more involved than he let on. Maybe the office boundaries were starting to blur, quietly but inevitably. For me, every little gesture made the secret growing inside me feel even heavier and more complicated. It didn't take long before whispers started spreading around the office. Someone noticed the change in my behavior, trying to hide fatigue, skipping lunches, the occasional quiet phone call to the doctor. Rumors swirled, barely veiled, but definitely there. One afternoon, HR called me in for what they called an informal inquiry. The tone was polite but sharp, and I quickly realized they were trying to figure out the nature of my relationship with Matt. Suddenly, the workplace that had felt safe now felt like a spotlight shining directly on me. People stopped inviting me to meetings that weren't mandatory. Casual greetings turned into cold nods. It was as if I was carrying a secret that made everyone uncomfortable. I felt watched. Every step I took seemed scrutinized. I caught colleagues whispering just out of earshot. Anxiety became my constant companion. I wondered if anyone believed the rumors, if my job was at risk. Matt became more distant. Our subtle connection faded, replaced by a professional coolness. The more isolated I felt, the heavier the pregnancy weighed on me, not just physically, but emotionally. I was trapped in a storm of gossip, office politics, and growing fears. Each day was a battle between keeping my growing secret and trying to hold onto the job I needed so badly. Feeling overwhelmed, I reached out to a lawyer recommended by a friend, and also contacted my union representative. Both urged me to document everything, every conversation, email, and meeting related to the situation. The lawyer reminded me to stay calm and avoid escalating the conflict, no matter how tempting it was. "Keep everything professional," she said. "This could get messy, but you want to protect yourself." My union rep was a steady presence, advising me on my rights and warning me about the risks of making things worse by reacting emotionally. But things took a turn when HR started pressuring me to take unpaid leave for my health and well-being, and asked me to sign agreements that would limit my ability to talk about the situation publicly. I felt cornered. My pregnancy was no longer just a private challenge, it had become a political minefield. I was trapped between protecting my health and reputation and keeping my job. I didn't want to leave, but the weight of the office gossip and HR's demands made me wonder if I had a choice. Every step felt like walking a tightrope. I was trying to prepare for motherhood while fighting to hold on to my dignity and future career. It was the hardest decision I had ever faced, and I knew more challenges were coming. The pressure became unbearable. My swipe card stopped working on some days, locking me out of my own office. I was suddenly excluded from important meetings, even those directly related to my projects. The cold shoulder from colleagues turned into outright hostility. Every morning, I faced a sinking feeling in my stomach, wondering what new obstacle or humiliation awaited me. The workplace was no longer a place of growth, it was a battleground. I tried to hold on for my unborn child and for myself, but my health was deteriorating. The stress was relentless, affecting my sleep and my peace of mind. One afternoon, after a particularly humiliating encounter with HR, I sat at my desk and realized I couldn't keep going. I was losing control over my life and my body, and my baby deserved better. With a heavy heart, I handed in my resignation. It was the hardest decision I'd ever made, but it was necessary for my sanity and my child's well-being. Leaving felt like losing a part of my identity, but it also felt like reclaiming a bit of my dignity. I was stepping into the unknown, but at least it was on my terms. When my daughter was born, I wasn't sure what to expect from Matt after everything. Would he even want to be involved? To my surprise, he reached out almost immediately, asking how I was doing and if he could come to the hospital. Matt started attending doctor's appointments and helped with logistics, like picking up baby supplies and arranging pediatrician visits. His consistent involvement caught me off guard. He wasn't just showing up for appearances, he was genuinely present. We began communicating more openly, talking about co-parenting and what our daughter would need from both of us. There was no rush, no pressure, just a slow, steady effort to build a connection for our child's sake. It wasn't perfect, and there were still moments of awkwardness, but it was a new chapter, one where we were partners in raising our daughter, even if life hadn't gone as planned. For the first time in months, I felt a fragile hope for the future. Over time, Matt and I began to build trust, not as boss and employee, but as co-parents navigating this new reality together. Our conversations grew longer and more relaxed. After doctor's appointments, we'd grab coffee, talking about everything from diaper brands to weekend plans. Late at night, our texts started to drift from strictly practical updates to sharing small, personal moments. His favorite childhood memory, my craving for pickles. There was a softness in those messages, a warmth I hadn't expected to feel again. I caught myself wondering if the distance between us was slowly closing, that maybe beneath all the chaos something more than co-parenting was quietly rebuilding. It was tentative and fragile, but it sparked a cautious hope I hadn't felt since before everything changed. Looking back on the past year feels like flipping through a roller coaster of emotions, fear, heartbreak, but also unexpected strength. The fallout from that night with Matt shook my world, yet it forced me to confront challenges I never imagined facing. Now I have a routine that brings stability, a loving daughter who reminds me every day what matters most, and a support system of friends and family who never wavered. The future is still uncertain. Matt and I don't have all the answers, and we're taking things one step at a time. But for the first time in a long time, I'm hopeful. To anyone curious about what comes next, yes, we're still figuring it out, and maybe, just maybe, the unexpected story has a few more surprises left.
That wraps up today's episode of r/Payback. If you enjoyed the ride, don't forget to subscribe for more epic stories.